Next on the College Rugby Wrap-Up, should Cal be worried? Will St. Mary's or BYU be the next CRAA D1A champion? Will Central Washington spoil the party in the women's and men's competition? And what's the latest with college stars in Major League Rugby? Rugby Wrap-Up brought to you in part by Sheehy Auto Stores. It's easy at Sheehy. The Pig and Whistle, the world's best rugby pump. And Lean and Limber, stretching your way to a healthier lifestyle. Hey everybody, and welcome back to this week's College Rugby Wrap-Up. Matt McCarthy in New York City, Colby Marshall in New Jersey, our maniac, Zach Lanning up in Maine, and Josh Rescio on the road. He's always on the road, but we think he's in California. He might be in Colombia. Who cares, guys? We got rugby to talk about, collegiate rugby. And let's start with you, Josh, out west with the men's action.
Yeah, a lot of games to cover. There's going to be one main game that I want to talk about. But before we get to that, let's kind of run down these scores because there were still some exciting games that are worth mentioning. St. Mary's really recovered from that almost loss to UCLA, 60-5 over Grand Canyon. Life was able to beat Arkansas State 19-15. Now they're 3-1 in the Mid-South and kind of setting themselves up for a good rematch versus Lindenwood. Central Washington, a team we don't really talk about that much, 60-13 over Arizona, the team that we were expecting to be more competitive. So they might be someone that we need to start covering from a week-to-week basis. UCLA, 57-3 over Utah. Harry Bennett's got to be so happy that the UCLA team finally put it together for a solid win. They take on Cal next week, so we can preview that one at the end here. Last game with kind of rankings in mind. Texas A&M 40-21 over Baylor. Texas A&M has now clinched the Red River Conference with a 190-point differential. So They kind of ran away with that one.
What else did you want to talk about? Because you had a significant match that you wanted to bring up.
Well, I mean, we gotta look for these games in the schedule that are going to help define, who's going to win this national title this year. And there's no bigger matchup so far this year than Cal versus BYU. We got to see BYU almost beat St. Mary's, not really, but we went into this game and Zach, I talked to you last week. We said if there's going to be a team that's going to beat Cal, they're going to have to play really strong defense and just really prevent those 10 to 15 minute moments where Cal is able to just kind of pile on tries and make the game out of hand so quickly. And BYU did just that. It took till the 21st minute for Cal to finally score their first try. Funny enough, it was from Schumacher, who decided to, score 63 points last weekend. But BYU was doing it all right. If anything, Cal was playing better defense, but you have to think about it. BYU holding a team that in some games is up 60 points by the 21st minute was playing amazing defense throughout the first half and only ended the first half down 10, 17-7. So there's not many bad things to say. Finishing off the game, though, and kind of keeping up with the recap, second half, BYU came out really strong. 2 tries, Spencer Ika and Captain Dylan Perry were able to put BYU up in the 64th minute. They were up 21-17. This is at Cal, too, in front of I don't know if you guys have been to Berkeley and watched a game at Cal. Great crowd, great atmosphere. Some teams just are not prepared to play there, but BYU came prepared, and they looked like an amazing team entering the final stretch. But Cal was able to kind of cap off what they did in the playoffs a couple of years ago and get that buzzer beater try. And they sneak out of there with a 24-21 win. So Cal's still your number one team in the country, but BYU, they put up a hell of a fight.
Wow, that is great. It's great for the whole collegiate rugby landscape for that to happen. And now it makes all the rest of the season that more intriguing to watch, especially when you got, again, you got the Central Washington to watch out for, St. Mary's, they're all in it. They're all finally. All right. Anyway, what else you got for us, Josh?
Well, I just want to throw out there, and Zach can back me up. I think my score prediction, I did get it right. Again, I did say BYU was going to play them close, but then Cal was going to get the win. So kudos to me.
All right, we'll pin a rose on your nose.
Moving to next week, previewing the UCLA-Cal matchup. Again, I feel like I've been on the UCLA bandwagon this year so far. But
Colby will tell you about bandwagons. That's no big deal.
Fair.
I'm biased.
Yeah. Well, it's not Iona playing this time, but I'm going to go ahead and pick Cal. I think UCLA's done great, but Cal's on a roll right now. I don't see many people stopping him. I really thought BYU had the best chance. I'm going to go ahead and say that Cal's going to walk away with a pretty easy win versus UCLA this week.
All right. Thank you, Josh. Good stuff. And let's take a quick break before we come back with Zach telling us about the women's landscape and Colby. We're not going to tell you what Colby's talking about. That's a cliffhanger. We'll be right back.
Selling or trading in your vehicle? She makes it easy. With Easy Trade, start online or visit us in store. We want your vehicle, and we'll give you up to 125% of KBB value.
It's easy at Shehe.com.
If you're in New York City and want to watch some great rugby, have some great food, and some great times, go to the world's best rugby pub, the Pig and Whistle on West 36th Street. And we are back. Colby Marshall, Josh Rescio, and Zach Lanning. Zach, tell us what's happening on the women's front.
Yeah, so we saw this week, guys, 2 more D1 elite programs kick off their spring chase for the national championship. Penn State women opened their spring season against Navy. If you'll remember, Navy, the CRAA D1 women's champs, they played that match in December, so they had a fall season. They beat Davenport in that one 20-12. It was a very close match. So Penn State opening up against the best that, the one step down division, the D1 division for women has to offer. And they actually triumphed on the date. Navy won. They beat Penn State in a very close match in this one, 20-15. So you see Penn State has a little ways to go now before they are ready for the actual playoffs coming up later in April. They have a few more matches scheduled. They have 4 total, 2 of those against club teams, and one of them actually against the WPL opponent, the Pittsburgh Forge. And they'll also play 1 more college game against Notre Dame College before those playoffs are around the corner. The second D1 elite team that kicked things off this week, University of Central Washington, the Wildcats, who beat Seattle Rugby Club 29-5.
Hey, Zach, so just to clarify, that win over Seattle, that was a women's club, not a college side that Central Washington's college side beat.
Correct. And I think, you see that a lot with the programs in the D1 elite sphere, Life, Lindenwood, Central Washington. Those teams generally, I would say, are closer to those club teams in skill level than they are to some of the other collegiate teams, especially in their area. They don't want to have to travel all over the place to play competition that's up to their level. So they'd rather play maybe a step above in the women's teams, and then especially the WPL teams that these teams are playing. You see that a lot with Life playing the Harlequins in Atlanta. Lindenwood plays a bunch of WPL teams as well. So that's something you see a lot with these programs when they're trying to, play more, I guess, competitive teams than have to find lesser competitive teams in the area.
It's a great option. What else you got for us?
Yeah, so just the couple of scores to round things out here. Life women beat Charlotte Rugby Club, as we just mentioned, another, side looking to play some club rugby teams to get, their skill set up. They won 69-0 on Saturday with a strong performance, specifically from Charlotte native Destiny Roberts, who had 2 tries.
Great name.
It is a great name. The player of destiny there for her in Life. She's one to watch as well going forward. And then Life is supposed to play in the LA Invitational Sevens this next weekend, but as we all know, that was moved to August as part of the HSBC World Sevens Series. So we won't see that happen, but they have a couple Sevens tournaments coming up as well. Just a reminder that the Sevens season is ongoing as well as the 15s here in the spring.
Good stuff. Nice work, Zach. Before we come to Colby, though, we have to pay some more bills, and we will be right back after this.
Been blind since I was 4. And I've never seen a beer commercial or a beer label. None of that stuff influences me. I drink beer because of the taste. And my beer is Pabst Blue Ribbon. It has the taste and the flavor.
What do you think's on the label?
I think there's a naked woman riding on a unicorn, jumping over fire. Oh, that's good beer.
And we are back with Mr. Colby Marshall, Mr. Josh Rescio, Mr. Zach Lanning, and it's time for our favorite part of the show, our Sheehy Auto Stores Pop Quiz. Now, guys, I want you to raise your hands. Now, forget it. Just answer the question. Who scored the first ever try for the Dallas Jackals in their franchise history? Zach?
It's Campbell Johnstone.
Colby?
Aaron Gray.
And Josh?
I was going to say Aaron Gray.
You can say Aaron Gray.
I'm going to say Aaron Gray.
And Josh, you are incorrect. It is Zach Lanning that wins this week's Sheehy Auto Stores Pop Quiz. Congratulations, Zach. We've got some St. Mary's towels and some rice-a-roni, the San Francisco treat for you. No, we don't. All right, Colby, take us through the MLR stars that just were recently on the American college rugby landscape.
Yeah, it was a really entertaining round 4 in the MLR this past weekend. I think a lot of the high-profile players in the league dominated most of the matches, but there were a few young guys that I want to talk about, particularly for the Toronto Arrows against Old Glory DC. You know, we saw rookie James O'Neill in the lineup, and he actually looked to have a try before TMO claimed that he was in an offside position when he received the ball. But another young guy that did have a try for the Arrows in this game was Ross Brody, who is a second-year Canadian scrum half. The Arrows were really high on Brody last year. He got a lot of playing time for Toronto, and he's off to a good start in this season. Got a try in this game in Toronto's win, and I can't wait to watch him for the rest of the year. He's a guy that Zach and I talked about a ton last season, and so I expect big things from Ross Brody. In the game between Seattle and Austin, even though Darrell Williams, the second-round pick out of Life University, hasn't made his MLR debut yet, he's somebody that is going to have a very, very good career in this league. He's a 6-foot, 220-pound wing, known for his speed. He was actually on the USA Sevens national team radar for a little bit. So I'm sure that he's going to be somebody that's going to be featured for the Seawolves team sooner rather than later. I can't wait to see him make his debut. And last but not least, in the game between Dallas and New York, you knew this was coming. You knew I was going to talk about this one. Connor Buckley, what a performance the scrum half had. The second year 9 out of Iona College, of course, was absolutely amazing. Unlucky not to have the assists go through in the first half, but I still think he's somebody that should be considered for first team MLR in round 4. Even though he didn't play the full 80 minutes, he was outstanding with his playmaking ability and just his cool, calm composure that you expect from the second year player. I cannot wait to watch the rest of Connor Buckley's season unfold with Rugby New York, who is undefeated at 3-0.
Connor Buckley 3-0 as a starter in Major League Rugby. Who knew? But you know what? If you saw that second half performance by Andy Ellis, who put on an absolute masterclass at scrum halving, that was unbelievable. So, Andy had a match that could have been first team scrum half worthy in that second half. But the damage was done by that New York pack. They just decimated the pack from Dallas. And it was really, the quote-unquote second string front row for New York that did the damage. Those 3 internationals, just great. Anyway, thank you for your input, Mr. Marshall. And gentlemen, final thoughts. Let's start with you, Zach.
Yeah, I actually have a really interesting story that I just saw come across that has in the college space as well, but maybe not, you would think, the rugby college space. The Utah Warriors just announced that they have reached the first ever NIL deal, or name, image, likeness deal, between an MLR franchise, a professional rugby team in the States, and college athletes. They have signed up 4 current and former college athletes from the area, 3 BYU football players, and then a former football player at Utah, 2 NIL deals. Basically, they're having them come in. They're able to, design their own kind of pieces of merchandise. They'll see a portion of the proceeds from some of the merchandise they sell and the tickets they sell to the games. So that was super interesting to me to see an MLR franchise kind of thinking outside the box in ways where they can make inroads with American athletes who maybe aren't rugby players to begin with, but maybe looking someday to kind of make the shift or make the switch to rugby. And it's great to see, these guys getting in a rugby building, starting to experience the sport of rugby, and possibly down the road, maybe they're an asset for Utah.
Good stuff. Josh?
I find it funny, even though at this point Iona could probably be sponsoring the show with how much we mention them. I don't know if you remember, Matt, but Connor Buckley was a popular name in the first season when we started this show. So it's really cool to see him having success in MLR. So I love to see it.
He's a popular name because his teammate's sitting on the panel here. But let's go to that teammate. Colby, final thought.
Yeah. Additionally, I thought it was pretty cool that Adam was a member of the Giltinis, but he had some of his players from UCLA come up to the Giltinis game to watch him play against New England. Adam Ash also is an assistant coach for UCLA rugby alongside Harry Bennett. So a couple of his guys got out to see the game, which I thought was pretty cool.
And he's a Scotchman to boot. My final thought, gentlemen, is that there was one man that has played now. He's made history for all 5 Super Rugby teams, the Australian Super Rugby teams. I'm not going to ask you to guess his name. I'm going to just tell you, Mr. Ruan Smith has now played for all 5 Australian Super Rugby teams. What's that got to do with the college rugby wrap-up? Nothing, but it's rugby. And it's our show, so we can do what we want. On that note, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Colby Marshall, Mr. Josh Rescio, and Mr. Zach Lanning. I'm Matt McCarthy. Thank you for tuning in, and please sign up for our weekly newsletter. Please press that subscribe button on YouTube. Please tell your mates about us, and please check out our other shows, including the Rugby Odds and our Major League Rugby highlights and preview show. And please, please, please sign up for our Rugby Wrap-Up American Red Cross Blood Donor Team.